you imagine if I used the F-bomb? You know what it would be? I tell people, it would be the electric chair.
There's the childish nicknames.
Very people who perpetrated the lies that I was an agent of Russia, like Adam Shifty Schiff and others.
The crazy conspiracy theories.
If you look for a job and you give up looking for that job because after 4 or 5 months you can't find one, you are considered statistically employed. We have
this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
This is the Rebel Alliance. Al Green, a Democratic representative from Texas, has filed articles of impeachment against Trump. This came only a day after Trump talked about taking over the Gaza Strip and hinted at long-term ownership. He also talked about the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, removing all of the Palestinians there to somewhere unknown, maybe reservations or concentration camps. We cannot pretend that what Trump is suggesting is not ethnic cleansing. We cannot pretend that Trump sees Gaza as anything more than a business opportunity for his own personal gain. When Trump talks about long-term ownership, he's not talking about ownership by the United States. He's talking about long-term ownership by Donald Trump. His proposed plan breaks a number of laws against the use of the presidency for personal profit. Al Green was right to file articles of impeachment. That being said, the impeachment is not going to work. Although narrowly, Republicans currently control both the House and the Senate, meaning they are not going to pass articles of impeachment, even if they make it far enough to be voted on. That doesn't matter. Somebody in the House must continue to file articles of impeachment every time Trump commits a crime or even talks about committing a crime. It is imperative to not let people forget that Donald Trump is a criminal. It is imperative to remind everyone at every chance that Donald Trump cares only about Donald Trump and his own gains. He will continue to push past the laws and disregard morals as long as the Supreme Court allows him to. It's made easier by the Supreme Court's unconstitutional ruling on presidential immunity. People must be constantly reminded that removing all Palestinians from Gaza is ethnic cleansing. People must constantly be reminded that continuing to round up Hispanics without worrying about whether they are legal or not, or whether they were born here or not, is ethnic cleansing. Elon Musk's Nazi salute was not a coincidence or an accident. Elon Musk is a Nazi. And so is Trump. Even Trump's stupid tariffs are about ethnic cleansing. I'll get to the tariffs in a bit. Meanwhile, Trump is not targeting his attacks exclusively on people who are not white. He had already signed an executive order banning transgender people from serving in the military. Now he has signed an order banning transgender women from competing in women's sports at high school and college levels. According to Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, there is an astounding total of 10 transgender college athletes nationwide. The legislation is transphobic pandering because Leah Thomas beat Riley Gaines in one swimming competition. Riley Gaines has since devoted her life to spreading transphobic propaganda and trying to keep trans people from having the same rights as everyone else. Gaines was at the press conference where the new executive order was signed. In the meantime, there is not a vast, shocking number of competitions that cis women have lost to trans women. It's time to stop the hate. It's time to stop the bigotry. It's time to stop worrying about what kind of equipment is in someone's pants. As part of this same crusade, Trump signed an executive order Thursday afternoon to establish a White House faith office to be led by controversial televangelist Paula White. The order also created a task force to, quote, eradicate anti-Christian bias, unquote. The short version is that Trump claims the LGBTQ plus community is actively targeting peaceful Christians for no reason, and thus the government has a responsibility to come after LGBTQ plus people. The order also repeated the blatantly false claim that the Biden administration intentionally declared 2024's Transgender Day of Visibility to fall on Easter Sunday. The truth is that the Transgender Day of Visibility always falls on March 31st, which happened to be Easter Sunday in 2024. I will say this loud and clear for everyone who needs to hear it, including Trump. There is no anti-Christian bias in the United States. Treating people who are not Christians as human is not anti-Christian bias. On Saturday, Trump signed an order threatening tariffs against Mexico, China, and Canada. For Mexico and Canada, the threat was to goad the countries into keeping anyone who isn't white out of the United States. During his campaign, Trump said that his economic plan was guaranteed to reduce the cost of living for Americans. Trump is now coming to terms with what economists have been forecasting the entire time. Trump's plan, including the tariffs, will yield higher prices and lower supplies across the entire U.S. market. The threatened tariffs are to affect the three largest trading partners of the U.S. Nice move, Don, antagonizing our allies. Mexico and Canada both gave in and agreed to Trump's racist border plan for now in an agreement to put off enacting the tariffs for 30 days. If Trump is not satisfied that both countries have sufficiently bowed down to him after 30 days, the tariffs are still set to go into effect. Trump has claimed that the tariffs would not affect prices because the money would be charged only to companies importing goods. Who said he was a businessman? Because I'm not seeing any evidence of it. Obviously, if the companies are having to pay extra, they're going to pass that on to consumers by charging more for their products. If, like Trump, you don't understand that, it means prices are going to go up. And it's not just foreign goods that are going to be affected either. A majority of products that are claimed to be made in the USA are assembled here, but still use parts or raw materials from other countries, namely Canada, Mexico, and China. So even the price of domestic goods is going to go up. And the catastrophe of these tariffs doesn't end there. In response to the tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he would enact retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports and has pushed for Canadians to buy Canadian, effectively boycotting U.S. goods. In much of Canada, there is already plans to remove American alcohol brands from shelves. I guess Trump believes the best way to make money is to get people to stop buying our products. That man is an idiot. And Trump's response to the devastating consequences of his asinine policies as they break so many of his own campaign promises? Quote, "Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe," unquote. This is from a social media post on Sunday. Quote, "It will all be worth the price that must be paid," unquote. Get him out of office. Still ahead on Rebel Alliance, we'll take a look at this week in history. First, Let's go looking for those people who have but 2 brain cells, each fighting for 3rd place. This week's Most Moronic Morons. In 3rd place, the NFL. This one just baffles me. I don't understand why we're still using Roman numerals in the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59 is happening on Sunday, and the logo contains 3 large letters, LIX. Since they haven't done so before, it's time to stop using Roman numerals for the Super Bowl. I would imagine that only a small number of people actually know what LIX means in Roman numerals, but I can think of at least 50 dirty jokes that contain the letters LIX. In 2nd place, a frequent flyer on this list, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. What is the most important issue to Lauren Boebert when she's not pleasuring someone she just met in a dark theater? Well, last week she introduced a bill to remove wolves from the endangered species list. Trump first introduced this idea in his first term. In 2022, a federal judge deemed that there was not evidence that the gray wolf would survive without endangered species protection. So Boebert's response was to reintroduce the same idea and call it the Pet and Livestock Protection Act. Nimrod. But in first place, it's J.K. Rowling. The Harry Potter author posted on Twitter after Trump signed his transphobic executive order concerning women's sports on Wednesday. The post said, "Congratulations to every single person on the left who's been campaigning to destroy women's and girls' rights. Without you, there'd be no images like this," unquote. The image in question was of Trump signing the executive order while surrounded by young girls, and he was looking at them with lustful eyes. Apparently surrounding a pedophile with underage girls is to be celebrated now. That idea earns J.K. Rowling the dishonor of being this week's Most Moronic Moron. And now, a look at this week in history. On February 3rd, 1959, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper died in a plane crash in Iowa. Holly had chartered a plane after the tour bus they had been using on their winter dance party tour started having mechanical problems. The plane went down just a few minutes into the flight. The oldest musician on board was 28. Ritchie Valens was only 17. On February 4th, 2004, Harvard sophomore Mark Zuckerberg launched a social media website called The Facebook. The website was originally built to connect Harvard students with one another, but quickly ballooned into one of the most significant social media companies in history. Known today only as Facebook, it is one of the most valuable companies in the world and has over 2 billion monthly active users. On February 4th, 1938, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released. The original trailer for the movie said, quote, "See for yourself what the genius of Walt Disney has created in his first full-length feature production," unquote. The film was based on the fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm and was not only Walt Disney's first full-length movie, but also the first full-length animated movie ever. On February 7th, 1964, the Beatles arrived at New York's Kennedy Airport. It was their first visit to the United States, and Beatlemania ensued. They were met at the airport by 3,000 screaming fans. 2 days later, the Beatles appeared for the first time on The Ed Sullivan Show. It was difficult to hear the performance over the screams of teenage girls in the studio audience, but they were still watched by an estimated 73 million television viewers. On February 7th, 1984, Navy Captain Bruce McCandless became the first human to perform an untethered spacewalk. The Space Shuttle Challenger was in orbit 170 miles above the Earth when he stepped out and maneuvered freely, using a bulky jetpack of his own design. After 90 minutes of flying the jetpack, he safely re-entered the shuttle. On February 8, 1990, singer-songwriter Del Shannon died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Shannon was a carpet salesman before his song Runaway catapulted him to stardom in 1960. He was regarded as an oldies act through the 70s and 80s, but was in the midst of a comeback early in 1990. Shannon suffered from depression and had begun taking medication for it shortly before he shot himself. It is still unknown whether or not the medicine increased his suicidal thoughts. On February 9, 1942, Congress approved moving the clocks forward 1 hour in each time zone, starting daylight savings time, which was called wartime at the time. Daylight savings time was originally imposed to conserve fuel and standardize time for the entire country for the first time. Daylight savings time was repealed in 1945, leaving states to again make their own decisions about standard time. In 1966, Congress passed legislation setting a national standard time that permanently superseded local habits. And that's this week in history on Rebel Alliance. A weekly reminder that the DC plane crash was caused by the Department of Government Efficiency. Don't let anyone forget about Trump's disgusting response to the crash. Remember to do your part by not patronizing businesses that support MAGA. Let's bankrupt them. Thank you, Rebels, for being part of the Alliance, and I cannot thank you enough for listening. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rebel Alliance on Spotify and YouTube. If you know someone who should be listening to Rebel Alliance, please send it to them and ask them to subscribe as well. So that's Rebel Alliance for this week. 206 weeks until the scheduled end of the illegitimate presidency of lame duck sex offender president, convicted felon Donald Trump. Do what you can to resist, and in the meantime, keep breathing, drink water, take your vitamins and meds, and sleep when you can. Until next time, never back down.